Good late evening, friends. Am I audible? Friends, am I audible? And I am sure this time in the background there is no abnormal sound. Demallo. In the background. Demallo Gupta. Yes, I am audible, and in the background there is no abnormal sound. Let me start today. I will make two small videos today, one after another. Both will be in English, very short. In Bangladesh, there is a government, and you see, the man whom the world knows as an intellectual, a great man, and once he received Nobel in peace, has created troubles in Bangladesh, and particularly for the Hindus there. Hindus till now, they are about 7% in Bangladesh. This Yunus has created troubles for them and made their life miserable. There are so many restrictions. There are burnings of Hindu villages, Hindu houses, and killings of the Hindu Sanatanis in all different parts of Bangladesh. And so much horror is there, vulgar horror is there, bloodbath, torture of the Hindus, that is being seen by the Americans at a distance of about 11 to 12,000 kilometers. And even the president, ex-president Trump, and this time the contesting person for presidency, Mr. Trump, has seen and described it, the situation is a very serious situation. The tragedy is the so-called seculars in Calcutta, in West Bengal, just on the side of East Bengal, Bangladesh. They are silent. For 70 years, 80 years, whatever torture, bloodbath, genocide against the Sanatanis in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan, these seculars are silent. They cannot see. These seculars, these communists and Gandhians, seculars, they can see any bloodbath in just West Asia, which is just 4,000 kilometers away from this Bengal. They can see that. Because the Muslim community, anytime the interest of the Muslim community is hampered, they can see all these things. But just on the side, few kilometers away on the east, in millions Hindus has been forced to leave their homeland, torture, bloodbath, genocide, ethnic cleansing, all these things. But the seculars in Calcutta, seculars in Bengal cannot see that. They are selectively blind. This selective blindness, selective deepness, selective blindness is seen in these seculars also for the INA and Netaji. They are selectively blind, deaf and dumb about the role of INA and Netaji in our freedom movement. In last 70 years, whatever history books have been written by the so-called government historians, official historians, who are basically either Gandhians or communists. Now we call them secular historians. I call them secular historians, perverted secular historians. Nowhere will see the importance of INA and Netaji in our liberation movement, in the fact which has compelled British to leave this subcontinent. But you see, even the Viceroy, last Viceroy Mountbatten, before that the Wavell, in their diaries, they have written the importance of the INA and Netaji, how so serious problems that INA and Netaji posed before them. Even the last British Army Chief in India, Auchinleck, his diary, how the INA issue created problem to the British. Even you see the Attlee, what is his statement? I will read that statement of Attlee today, and then one news from the in 2013, where the British historians met together to discuss in their last 300 years of the British military history, which was the most important war. I'll read that area. In the 300 years of the British military history, what is the most important war British has ever fought, which has decided the British Empire, fate of the British Empire? In that discussion, they have decided in the history of British military history, in their empire, their history of 300 years, it is the war of Imphal and Kohima against Netaji, INA and Japanese army. That was the most important war in the British military history of 300 years. I'll read that area, and after that I will stop it. First I will read the Attlee, statement of Attlee. Remember, it is Attlee, the post Great War. Actually, Attlee came as Prime Minister of Britain before the end of this Second Great War, defeating Churchill. And this Attlee, as Prime Minister, piloted the Indian Independence Bill, then Indian Independence Act in British Parliament, which has made possible the partition of India and transfer of power. And what is the statement of this Attlee? Why Attlee was compelled to leave this subcontinent, even when the British won the Great War? I will read from the volume History of Freedom, History of Modern Bengal, Part 2, Freedom Movement, by Professor R.C. Majumdar, page 373. Let me read lines. When the war ended, the Governor General called a conference of 21 representatives of all the political parties to work out a new administrative system of India. The first sitting of the conference was held at Simla on June 25th, 1945. The Governor General proposed that his Executive Council would comprise members of whom, besides himself and the Commander-in-Chief, the others would be Indians. The number of caste Hindu and Muslim members would be half and half. The public and the newspapers expressed themselves in favor of the proposal, but Gandhiji opposed it on the ground that to divide the Hindus into two categories of caste Hindu and scheduled caste Hindu would be improper. Jinnah claimed that the Muslim members must all be from the Muslim League Party. Sibraj, representative the scheduled castes, demanded that the number of the Muslim and scheduled caste members should be in proportion to the strength of the two communities, and further that the Congress should not have any say in the selection of the members of this community. Congress rejected the above demand of Jinnah and Shivraj. There was thus no consensus, and the conference ended in July 14. Signs of dissipation of the disappointment that pervaded the Indian political scene as a result of failure of the conference were soon evident. On July 26, 1945, the Labour Party, after having obtained a majority in the parliament at the election that was held from the government in England, before the election, the leader of the Labour Party had stated May 23 in clear terms that his party, if returned to power, would concede complete independence to India. After the election, Prime Minister Attlee, referring to his election pledge, declared in August 21 he would arrange a conference for drawing up a constitution of independent India, and to that end, as first step, elections to the central and provincial legislatures would be held in December, and that for the provisional legislatures in March 1946. The majority of the members returned in these elections belonged to the Congress and Muslim League. Surprisingly enough, the Muslim League could not be returned with the absolute majority in the Muslim majority provinces claimed for Pakistan, barring Bengal and Sindh, and as such that party could not form ministries in other two of those provinces. About Bengal, the ministry hereafter. Then the trial of the officers of the Azad Hind Fauj, the leaders. This next I'll come to the more important part. Yes, more important part. We are now in a position to assert with confidence that the formation of the INA was one of the major grounds for the decision of the British government to quit India. This was admitted by no less person than Clement Attlee, and the head of the British government, which conceived the idea of granting freedom to India and carried out the decision in spite of opposition of the die-hard conservative like Churchill. This proved by the English translation of the following extract from the letter written by in Bengali by Sri P.B. Chakraborty, ex-Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court, on 30th March 76, when I was acting as the Governor of West Bengal. In 1956, Lord Attlee, who gave India freedom by putting an end to British rule in India, visited India and stayed in Rashtrapati Bhavan, in Raj Bhavan, Calcutta, for 2 days. I had then a long talk with him about the real grounds for the voluntary withdrawal of British from India. I put it straight to him like this: the Quit India movement of Gandhiji practically died out long before 1947, and there were nothing in the Indian situation at that time which made it necessary for the British to leave India in a hurry. Why did they then do so? Why you left India when you have won the war? Inverted comma. In reply, Attlee cited several reasons, and most important of which were the activities of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, which weakened the very foundation of the attachment of the Indian land and the naval force to the British government. Towards the end, I asked Lord Attlee about the extent to which the British decision to quit India was influenced by Gandhiji's activities. On hearing this question, Attlee's lips parted in a smile of disdain, and he uttered slowly, putting emphasis on each single letter, minimal. Gandhi's role in freedom movement, minimal. I referred to this talk of mine with Attlee in speech at Netaji Bhavan, which was broadcasted by the All India Radio, but omitting all references to Gandhiji. This is Attlee. The Prime Minister Attlee, who piloted the Indian Independence Bill, he himself has confessed the number one factor which compelled British to leave this South Asia is the INA and Netaji Subhash Chandra. Then I will come to another document, that is in 1913. In 1913, British historians had a meeting in their academy, and the subject of discussion was, in their last 300 years, this is 2013, that is the month of, I think, month of April 2013. Yes, I am with my hand the journal Times of India, Times Global page, Monday, April 22, 2013. And in that meet the historians in England, the subject of discussion was, in their history, military history of 300 years of British Empire, which is the most important war? Is it the D-Day victory or the Waterloo victory against Napoleon, or some other, the list of wars which British Empire fought? In that debate and voting, at the end voting, first few papers were read, then voting, it came out that it is the war of the British against Netaji's INA and Japanese army in the Imphal-Kohima front. That was the most important war British ever fought in their 300 years of the military history. And equally, that war has shaped the fate of British Empire in the world. Let me read it, and then we'll stop this discussion today. Win over Netaji's INA is UK's greatest battle. The tragedy is the Europeans, historians, even British, even prime ministers, army generals, and topmost bureaucrats, they have admitted it is INA and Netaji which has compelled them to leave this country. But the sorry figure is, tragic figure is, our official historians, the secular historians, basically majority is communist historians, they cannot see this fact. Win over Netaji's INA is UK's greatest battle in their history of 300 years military history of the empire. London, Britain's struggle to repel a combined force of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose led Azad Hind Fauj, Indian National Army, and Japan during the World War II around Imphal and Kohima in 1944 has been adjudged as the greatest ever battle involving British forces, a report said. The clashes that took place in northwestern corner of India were voted the winner of the contest run by the National Army Museum. here to identify Britain's greatest battle. The battles of Imphal and Kohima saw the British and Indian forces under the overall command of the Lieutenant General William Slim repel the Japanese invasion of India and helped turn the tide of the war. The Japanese, along with the soldiers of the Azad Hind Fauj, eventually lost dead and missing about 53,000 in the battle lines. The British sustained 12.5 thousand casualties at Imphal, while the fighting at Kohima cost them another 4,000. The campaign of Imphal Kohima was on the short list of the 5 battles which topped a public poll. Finally, it was selected as the winner by an audience of more than 1,100 guests, all historians, at a special event at the museum in Chelsea on Saturday. Imphal Kohima received almost half of the all votes. It was far ahead of the D-Day in Europe and the Normandy Day in 1944, which received only 25% each of the vote and came second, followed by the Battle of Waterloo, that is 1815, against that is France. Battle of Waterloo. At the event, each contender had their case made by historian giving a 40-minute presentation. The case for Imphal and Kohima had made by Dr. Robert Lyman, an author and fellow of the Royal Historical Society. I had thought that one of the bigger names like D-Day or Waterloo would win, so I am delighted that the Imphal Kohima has won. You have got to judge the greatness of the battle by its political, cultural and social impact as much as the military impact. He was quoted by the Telegraphs as saying, Imphal and Kohima were really significant for a number of reasons, not least that they showed that the Japanese were not invincible and that they could be beaten, and beaten well. The victories demonstrate this more than the US in the Pacific, where they were taking them on garrison by garrison. The Lyman added, the fight for Imphal went on longer than that for Kohima, lasting from March until July. Kohima was smaller in scale and shorter from April to June, but the fighting was so intense it has been described as the Stalingrad of the East. And other areas in this discussion, the point came, this war of British in Imphal Kohima front has decided the future of the British Empire, because after this you see what happened. After this, though the Japanese army defeated, INA defeated, but after INA trial there is disintegration of the British India force, because it is the British India force by which British conquered the South Asia, conquered Southeast Asia and conquered parts of West Asia and Africa and maintained the British Empire. The moment the British India force disintegrated, the British Empire collapsed. In that angle, this war, in deciding the fate of the British Empire, is very important in the British military history of 300 years. Let me stop here now. Then I will come to another point, another issue. Let me stop here. Raja Mitra, I have heard a rumor that win over INA by the UK in Imphal-Kohima front was the fruitful result of the backstabbing and sabotage of Shahnawaz Khan, and Shahnawaz Khan was a factor because Shahnawaz Khan has another brother who was on the British side, and this Shahnawaz was giving informations to him, and his cousin brother was fighting against the INA. Yes, that's the point. That's the point. And what else? No, this is not a rumor. That's why Netaji on the war from ordered court-martial against Shahnawaz Khan. But as the wars abruptly ended, that court-martial process could not be completed, and Shahnawaz escaped that court-martial. That I have discussed one day. I have discussed already one day. Then let me stop it now. Then I will go to another subject. Okay, let me stop it now.